So, I'm going to do a quick video of my 1991 Toyota National RV Dolphin 900. It is for sale, but there also aren't very many good videos of these online. So I'm going to kind of kill a couple birds with the same stone, do a video tour just of the RV first, showing all of its features, layout, etc. for those who are just generally interested in these old cool RVs, and then kind of follow that up with the specific details about this one since it is currently for sale. So first I'm just going to do a quick walk around of the RV. Got a couple hatches open that I opened for some photos, so apologize for that. I will go through in detail everything on the exterior real fast. Hopefully this isn't going to be a super long one. I think the 30-minute RV walkthroughs are overkill. We're going to try to make this under 10. Toyota supplied these chassis directly to RV manufacturers in the late 80s and early 90s. I think 94 was the last year they made them. They're super rad. They made a 22R, which is the carbureted, 22RE, which was the fuel injected 4-cylinder of the same engine block. And then they started doing the 3-liter V6, which is what this RV and most of the bigger ones, which is the 21-footers, of which variety this is, were in the early 90s and late 80s. It's a notoriously terrible motor from Toyota. I'll get into that in a little bit. But they revamped that block later with the 3.4 that came out in the 4Runner and stuff, and it's a much better motor. But this is one of the 3.0s. It's not great, but it's kind of charming in how slow it is. It's always done what I've asked. It just requires patience. So this thing has got the super rad purple stripes. We'll start exterior. This is your freshwater fill. I close that back up. Got your sewer hose. Came with an Onan gas generator. They're horrible to work on. I left it in Colorado. Used this as storage for sewer stuff and leveling blocks. It's worked great for that. You've got your cable hookup and power. It's 30 amp. Furnace vent, hot water heater, exhaust, and access. This is your shower pan drain access, something you never have to open, hopefully. These old Dolphins have FJ Cruiser rear tail light lenses. So if you ever need to source those, that's what they are. You look them up on the internet, you'll find them. I don't know why they use those. I think it's kind of cool and hilarious. I've got one that's cracked. I never replaced it because it never really needed it, but here we are. Let's see, they did not come with trailer hitches. I put that on there with mixed results. You've got a 20-pound horizontal cylinder refillable propane tank. I've had no issues with that. It's a nice new one. Put a new regulator on it. All that jazz. You've got your refrigerator exhaust and access back here. You've got your battery compartment, gas fill, cool little outdoor light that is super finicky in the switch. There we go. I washed it yesterday, so everything's kind of mad. Pull out step. Big, wonderful tow mirrors. A spot where everyone hits their head every single time they get in and out of this thing because it is so low, like 5 feet off the ground. It is a dually. It is the later model where Toyota fixed the issue with the rear axle. So any of them have a 6-lug rear is the correct axle. If it's 5 lug, it is a modified single rear wheel axle that they threw a dual rear wheel on, and they're known to fail. This is a full floating rear, look it up. It's a much sturdier 1-ton rear axle in the back of this teeny tiny little truck. This one's got air ride suspension on it, independently controlled airbags on either side that you can use. It's super rad. I run like 65 psi in them, and it makes this thing ride infinitely better down the road. Let's see, I guess that's most of the exterior, so let's dive on the interior of these things. This one's got a cool color matched interior with the front seats. Not all of them are like that. The console is not stock. The original owner put that in here. I installed a backup camera that is on a relay switch, so it runs when the car is on, runs whenever that switch is on, so you can use it as a rear view mirror. We've got, can't see if you can see it, let's get it, there we go. 79,819.6 miles on this original motor. They're super simple, basic, cool trucks. I love it with my whole heart. Let's do a quick interior walk around. Coming up fast on my 10-minute mark that I promised earlier. So you got main door, screen door like any traditional RV. Got a nice storage cabinet right here that's always been my water hose cabinet. Just cleaned it, so let me dust off my feet. So the layout of this one is the like mid dinette. I don't know how they really name them. There's some that had a captain's chair and a further back entry door on them, and then there's the ever so rare rear dinette. I don't even know if Dolphin made a rear dinette, but I know that they did make the captain's chair. There'd be a captain's chair right where I'm standing, but this is the most, I think, common of them all. There's a couch. You've got your main bed, which is over the cab. You've got a dinette that folds into a small bed. You have a super functional, rad little kitchen with a 4-burner range and an oven. It's your traditional RV oven. They're kind of finicky, but it works great. This was the microwave cabinet. It's a 700-watt microwave that was horrible, so I ditched it since we never have power, and I pretty much exclusively dry camp. Tons of storage. This little thing's an added thing that I put on. You've got vents everywhere. There's one up front, one directly above me in the middle, and then 2 in the rear. Good sized fridge with more drawers underneath. More wonderful cabinet space. Modest bathroom. Your shower. Good closet storage. Your mirror. Another mirror. Toilet paper rolls down here. Let's see, anything else I need to mention real quick in my layout video? You've got your water heater access. Let's see if that focused. Your furnace is located right here, and the thermostat for the furnace is on the other side. Your fuse panel converter charger, the water pump, water tanker under here. I believe this has a 17-gallon water tank. Don't hold me to that. I'll look that up and put it in the video description. Let's see. What else? We just crossed over the 10-minute mark. I think that's pretty much the gist of the quick overview of this thing and all of its stuff. Do a little bit deeper dive for those who are truly interested and potentially looking to buy this thing from me. So let's start with the big stuff. This motor started idling funny in the middle of an 11,000 mile trip last year. I was broke and in the middle of nowhere. Limped it all the way back across the country and decided I'd deal with it later. Like I said, these are notoriously bad engines from Toyota. It seems like what happens with these 3 VZEs often is that one of the valves will get tight and then eventually burn out. That is what happened with this motor. Over time of running it with a burnt valve, it's now lost compression in the cylinder past the ring as well. So the motor's in pretty rough shape. With a little Lucas oil in it, it actually runs great at speed, but idles rough, far less rough with some fuel additive than it does without it. It's throwing check engine lights. What's that code? It's the O2 sensor code. I replaced the O2 sensor. It went away. That was my first diagnostic at-home deal that I did with this thing. It did not fix it, obviously. So I took it to a mechanic. We did a compression test. It failed on cylinder 3. And then before we started doing the rebuild recently, we went ahead and did a leak down test. He hooked smoke machine up to it. Smoke was coming out of the crankcase. So it's definitely getting past the ring. All of that said, it's really not bad. I think this block is salvageable. It's low miles. And the compression on that cylinder past the ring didn't seem like it's terrible. You won't know until you tear it apart, and so it needs to be completely torn apart. What's a more viable option, in my opinion, would be to probably just buy a rebuilt motor and throw it in it, or do a 3/4 swap. So the TLDR short version, for those of you who don't know what I'm mumbling about right now, is that the motor in this thing needs significant repair work. With the other things that I will mention in a minute, it's looking like it's going to be a $4,000 to $5,000 worth of repairs. That's mid to high-ish, I think, conservative-ish estimate that I've gotten from my mechanic. If you take it to some specialty Japanese place, they're going to try to charge you $7,000 to do it. But that's if you were to fix this motor. In my rusty, I don't know what I'm talking about really that good anymore. I think you can get some rebuilt motors for anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 depending on who you're getting it from. And then you'd have labor to have the motor thrown in, so that'd probably be the safer, equal in price, but like, you know, you're not getting into a really bad motor because there's some unknowns with this one until you take it apart. 3/4 swaps aren't hard. Tons of people do them. There's a ton of resources online. It's the exact same engine block that was in a later car, so it mounts up to this transmission. You just got to swap out some electrical stuff and sort out some motor mounts and details. The hood on this truck will clear a 3/4. The 4Runners don't, I believe. Maybe it's the 4-wheel drives don't, but it really isn't that big of a deal. That had been my plan all along, is to drive this thing until the motor blew up, because they blow up. I say blow up, it's really not that bad. It runs great. I'll crank it in a minute. Drive it until the motor did a 3VZ thing to me, and then put a new motor in it, spend $4 or $5 on an engine swap, and then drive it happily off into the sunset with a lot more horsepower and the most bomb-proof V6 on earth. But it's reached a point now where it's just not my project anymore, and I want to pass it off to somebody else. And so that's where we're at. So let's do a little bit deeper dive on stuff with this one in particular. When I got it from the original owner, it had some Bondo on some weird rough patches right here. I poked at them. It's strange. It looked almost like corrosion in the aluminum siding. This is aluminum. The rest of the RV is fiberglass. From what I could gather, there was no water damage in there. I've taken the strip off the side. This caulk right here is from a fresh check that I did the other day, where I peeled it back a little bit. I replaced all of this, which is why it's all wrinkly, is because it's so hard to get on and off. I'm wiping it down with mineral spirits, rub some of the paint off right here, but that's where we're at with this. It's not beautiful, but I've tried desperately to fight the I don't care what it looks like, I want this to be super watertight. It was the fourth one I looked at, and I flew all the way to Kansas from Georgia to get it. I really was amazed at how good a shape it was in. I've driven it hard and I've loved it, and taken it a lot of really cool, wonderful mountains and passes and mountain biking all over the country. So I was more worried about it staying waterproof, sealed up, and keeping the interior in good shape. So I did a terrible job with caulk. You could scrape it all off, make it look pretty, but I've resealed every window on it. This was the first one to get resealed. I did it pretty much before I noticed any water coming in any of them. When they were all out, I examined the structure around them. There was a tiny couple of drops that came through this one, which is when I did all of them. And by a couple of drops, I mean like a couple of drops. And I am so psychotic about checking this thing every time it rains. It spends its entire life under a cover in a storage facility with 5-gallon buckets all over the roof to keep it pitched so that it runs. It's a super duper heavy cover. It's waterproof. It stays dry. It stays out of UV. I keep it waxed with the UV protectant, fiberglass polish, RV stuff from Meguiar's. So all the windows have fresh butyl, and I use Dicor on everything, which is overkill for siding according to every RV repair guy I've ever talked to, but it's so good and flexible and it lasts forever. It's primarily used for roofs, but I went ahead and just did a sloppy overkill job on it because I didn't want it to leak. So it's a little harder to get off than regular caulk, but that's why I used it, because it's hard to get past. Let's see. I think that I mentioned the generator already. I left that in Ouray, Colorado, because I went on my cross-country trip. It fired up, ran great, cleaned it, changed the oil, did all the things. And then a couple of the O-rings in the carburetor disintegrated. I think that after as many years as they had been around and me putting some carb cleaner on them, it killed them. I didn't feel like hauling around a big pain in the butt generator. They're loud, they don't work great in the first place, they have tons of problems, and it was 31 years old. So the only way to get to the carburetor to work on it is to pull this entire access door off, which is why it has a sloppy, I did this in a gravel parking lot in Colorado, caulk job on it. So I pulled it out and I left it in a scrapyard with a guy who was happy to put it in his pile of metal scrap, because you have to pull it completely out to work on the carb, which means taking the access door off, and it was just way too much trouble. It wasn't worth it. I got rid of it. The gas line is still in here, and so is the power. It's capped off right there, doesn't leak. This was the exhaust hole. This is your freshwater drain for the tank. You got your little teeny tiny shorty sewer hose access. Let's see. You've got your power cable. All this stuff's in great shape. Resealed all of this caulk around here. The original owner installed an electric hot water heater element. It's a hot rod They go into your drain hole through a fitting. They hook up to this. There's a thermostat on the inside. It works great. 2 months ago I left it on for an entire weekend. The water heater did not explode, so I'm assuming that it works pretty well. So you've got nice hot water when you're plugged into shore power whenever you want it. The propane hot water works great on this thing too. You can use both of them if you're trying to get your water hot real fast. I've peeked in the tank. Doesn't seem like there's any corrosion in there. I've kept it pretty well religiously drained if I'm not using it. This is your shower pan access. I don't know if I talked about that earlier. I put the MaxxAir fan in it, and so I sealed up using that die-cord tape that's on the front. This, because it was a pathetic excuse as of a vent. Made that go away. Just one less spot to leak. Let's see. You've got black and gray access. The original owner had changed those valves out not too long ago. Tires are in pretty good shape. They're coming up on 6 years old, so the rears are going to need to be replaced pretty soon just for safety. They look great. There's no dry rotting in them, but I was about to change them if I was going to keep it. I think they've probably got a few more years, a good year life in them, but like, it's an RV. I wouldn't want to blow out. The fronts and the spare are brand new as of 12,000 miles ago, 15,000 miles ago. They're wearing pretty evenly. I've rotated them pretty well. We've got the cracked taillight lens that I epoxied together and used washers to screw back on. Again, those are FJ40 things. They're $35, I think, for some replacement ones each. Just haven't felt like pulling that thing off and dealing with it. This was cracked when I got it. I sealed it up really good from the inside with caulk, glued it all back together, and then put that whole shroud back on. I installed a trailer light wire harness that I then tied more lights into, because when my bike rack is on here, you cannot see these lights at all. And so this thing on the back is lit up so bright, especially with these reflective strips. You're not going to get rear-ended unless somebody is completely super duper zoned out, which I guess is absolutely possible. This trailer hitch is not factory. The original owner had one on here that was sketchy. I re-engineered it. It's still not something that I would even dream of towing something with. A lightweight bike rack or hitch haul carrier, maybe. My plan was to further reinforce it in the future and try to beef it up a little bit, but currently as it stands, it's totally doable to do some stuff with. I ran a hardwired backup camera all the way through the RV. The wire is not visible anywhere. It goes under the couch, all through the place. Comes back here. That's what I was talking about earlier. Since we're back here, I'll climb up on the roof real fast. MaxxAir fan. Got a MaxxAir vent cover up front. The first thing I did when I got it is I replaced all of the vents with new vents and threw them on here. They're the metal shroud surround ones, so that they're not gonna like crack with the sun over time. The original ones were plastic vents, and they were in absolute garbage shape. Seemed like they were gonna leak really bad, so I immediately replaced all of those. While I was up here, I resealed with Dicor self-leveling sealant literally everything. I went kind of overkill and did the folded metal roof seams, which can't even leak, and took off the antenna and sealed the ever-living crap out of that thing. So with the MaxxAir fan and with that thing up front, you can really get it sealed up super good, vent it out, even in the rain. Open up that front vent, turn the back vent on, and air it out super easy. The propane tank's brand new. The one that was in it was the original one. It was like 2001 or something. It was super old. So instead of trying to get it recertified, I just went ahead and bought a new tank, put a new regulator in it, put a new gas hose in there. It's got a lot of years left on the certification. The refrigerator is new-ish. I can look at the receipts and let you know if you're truly interested. I think the original owner put that in about 6 years ago. I put new batteries in the truck and into the house. That's a 90 amp hour or something like that. 100 amp hour literally wouldn't fit through the door. It's lead acid, it's nothing fancy, but I can go with all the LED lights and being power conscious in this thing. I'm not like running a laptop or an inverter. You can go a long time. Independently adjust airbags. Your tiny Toyota fuel tank on this thing, it doesn't go very far. The screen is a little scratched up. I've got a roll of screen underneath the couch. All you got to do is pull out the screen bead and replace that. It's super duper easy. Oh yeah, back to the drivetrain on this thing. The air conditioner compressor on this thing exploded more or less day one of my big trip. It needs to be replaced, and the system probably needs to be just cleaned out. I was going to have that done when I was going to do everything else, but when I found out it had a burned ring, I went ahead and said never mind. The steering box, the gearbox, also has a leaky seal on it. I put power steering leak stop fluid in it for a while. It completely stopped leaking, and then recently started leaking again once it got cold. It makes me think that the seal just got cold and now it's leaking again. So that's that. Let's see, interior stuff. There is no signs of water damage in this thing. It is super duper clean, which is why I bought it, and what I've been fighting very hard to keep that way. There's no water damage under the windows. There's no water damage in the corners. I'm sure that there is a little bit of water that has intruded into this 31-year-old camper in a seam somewhere at some point in the last forever years. That wrinkle right there is not water damage. I had that window out. It's dry as a bone. The water has never been in there. But yeah, there's no significant damage in this thing. It's in incredible shape. Oh, I did just think of something outside. Let me go back out there and show you all that. So I think whoever cut the door seam on this thing, or the door opening at the factory, did kind of a bad job. It started to run, the fiberglass did, and I drilled it out. I've got Dicor over it, and then I caulked around it, or a Turnabond or whatever that tape is. But it's sealed up right now. I don't feel like scraping that off. There is a little hairline crack in the fiberglass right there. The nose doesn't flex or do anything crazy whenever you hit bumps. I've had it at a RV repair shop in town and had them look at it to make sure that it didn't do anything too crazy. So I don't think that there's any structural issues that's causing that crack. My plan was to pull this door completely out and fiberglass repair behind the fiberglass from the inside and then put the door back in, but I have not felt like pulling the whole door out, so I haven't done that because the crack hasn't moved in a few thousand miles. Let's see. The interior is all original. There's like no scratches on anything. Everything is in super clean shape. There's one caveat to what I just said, actually. Let me redact that statement. The interior is mostly original. I've had the seats and the bed and the couch and everything in here covered. I've kept towels down on the carpet the whole time I've had it. You know, like I've babied this thing as much as I could, living the traveling hard with it and going mountain biking and actually using it life that I have. The things that I am sad that I've done. I chipped this little teeny tiny piece of trim right here. My plan was to put a piece of metal edging on there eventually to make it more bomb-proof, but this stuff is like so flimsy. I just like bumped into it hard moving a box in here or something. Other than that, like, the cabinets are in great shape. I built this little phone cubby for the bed. Everything works. I put new handles in all of it. I've got LEDs in most of the lights in one, and then I've got the original incandescent bulbs in the other, so that way you can run conservative power, and if you're at an RV park you can have the nice warm tone of the oranger light of the original bulbs. Got a carbon monoxide thing in here. The furnace works great. There's a bearing in it that's starting to squeal a little bit, but that's totally normal for these. Pretty sure you can get in there and lubricate it. It does it every blue moon. Right when it kicks on, once it warms up, it stops. But it'll heat this thing. I've slept in it with water in the tanks in the low teens multiple times. All the water lines are run interior in the cabinets. And so what I do when it's that cold is I just open some of the cabinet doors in the back and under here by the hot water heater, and just like keep the thermostat set at like 62. It'll get you through a night with the battery like that, and then as long as you're driving or hooking up some power the next day, you'll be good. Let's see, I put another 12-volt outlet right here. I ran it to the fuse box down here. Is this thing light adjusting? I can't see anything. And so it's on a fuse. I rebuilt the seals in the water pump right after I got it because it was loud and obnoxious and squirted a little bit of water out of the side of the diaphragm pump. Put a new seal kit in that. Let's see, what else have I done? I put this folding oven cover, the range cover. It's got a cutting board. I put that rail around the top of the fridge up here. I built this so that you can leave stuff up there when you're driving and it doesn't go flying off. The original owner had replaced the table with this cheap plywood top that I had intended on replacing, but it's light and it looks fine, so I never fooled with it. Let's see. It's currently missing a blind on this side. It got pulled off by an anxious dog. That also, if you can see, even in this video, this screen got bent just a hair as well. He scratched at it just a little bit. I straightened it all out as best as I could. The screen's fine, nothing's damaged. The window sill is all fine, but the blind is gone. And I just kept a piece of Reflectix in it, which you can see there's little Velcro pieces right here. I'll include the Reflectix I cut out for it. There's one for both of the big windows, I think. Yeah, the other ones just go behind the blinds. Keeps it nice and cool in here on hot days. But a new custom made blind that's that size is like 45 or 50 bucks online. I just hadn't gotten around to doing it yet because, again, I don't really care what this thing looks like. I've tried to keep it looking really nice, but me personally, I never really cared what it looked like. Bought some Walmart washable bath mats for in here. They match perfectly. This is, if you can even see it, the switch with an outlet on it for the hot water heater hot rod. The original owner put bypass valves on the hot water heater for winterizing. I don't even know if you can see that. Let me see if I can turn my phone light on. There we go. These are the low point drains. Those are the bypass valves. This is power compartment. That's the old plug from the generator wires. I put a new converter charger in this thing because the old one was stuck to wide open and was putting out like 17 volts, and I caught it before it did anything damaging to my batteries or anything like that. I noticed it immediately and went ahead and ripped it out and put a new one in this thing. It was weird. It was only putting that voltage to the outlets. It wasn't putting it to the battery. I think I couldn't remember what I diagnosed on it, but instead of rebuilding it and doing anything crazy, I just put like a different one in here that I bought from a guy in Texas when we were out traveling. I can't remember the brand, but it's got bazillions of Amazon reviews that are good. It works great. Let's see if the data manufacturer is on this fridge. 2013, so it's pretty new. It works great. It's two-way, gas and AC. The little sight glass is cracked, but you can still see through it. Something fell out of the cabinet and cracked the toilet seat. I was going to replace that, but again, form over function for me. It's currently winterized, got the pink stuff in it. Nice big closet, it's in good shape. It's the nice Max Air fan with like the 10-speed settings. All of the other blinds are in great shape, so I was thinking that if I was going to keep it, I was going to replace all of them so they still match. But again, I never got around to it. Removable bar. You got your efficient dealio there that I bought. Shut off valve. There were a couple funny spots in here where something had fallen over and punched a teeny tiny little hole in the shower. The original owner never used a shower in this thing. He said he had never even turned it on, and that he only peed in the toilet and never even pooped in it. So I just put some white silicone caulk over that. It's held up great. I caulked all the other seams around here too. I've used the shower probably 10 times in the last 2 years. It works totally great for quick little showers. It's got like a 6-gallon or 5-gallon hot water heater, so you in and out pretty fast. You can make it happen. Let's see. What else should I say about this thing? I've got an air conditioning cover for it. I've got tire covers for the tires that are custom sized for these goofy little tires that are on this thing. I've got a cover for the whole RV that the lady on the internet told me to buy a certain size in the chat thing. I told her the exact measurements and told her to look up pictures of it and whatever. And she said, get this size, not the smaller one, and it's way too big. So, it's got a 5-year warranty on it. We're at year 2 with it. It's still in great shape. There's no tears in it. It's a little saggy in the butt, but I've always just cinched that out. Had no issues with it. It has been through a couple bad storms with the wind. Hadn't messed up anything. The air conditioner has new refrigerant in it. This guy, not the cab AC, it has no refrigerant in it. This thing works super great. It's old and it's loud, but it keeps this thing so cold on a hot Florida day. I seal that up, but it's still got power to it, because if I pull the fuse out of that guy, it kills all of these lights, I think. It does something weird. Let's see. What else? Hot water switch. What else could I even say about this thing? Got a nice big storage cabinet under here. Those drawers are great. It's got an amazing paper cup and toothbrush holder. It really is in such good shape. I'm so sad that I'm having to let it go, but it's just not my project anymore. It doesn't suit the way I like to travel. If it doesn't garner enough interest as is, I may put a new motor in it in the future, but currently I'm going to list it at what I think, based off of the market that I've seen on these, which I've watched pretty religiously for the last few years, is a great deal for one in this good a shape. Let me go outside and I'll poke around under it with a light so that you can see there's zero rust on it. I put new shock absorbers on it right after I got it. It really is an absolute gem. I'm not going to pull the cover off of it and show it to people if you're not truly interested in purchasing it, which is the reason that I'm making this lengthy video. That, you know, if you're crazy enough to have hung on for the whole ride, I appreciate you. There's where my friend and I welded that stuff onto the back for the trailer hitch. Again, these frame extensions are wimpy on these things. The butt of them is mainly held up by the butt itself. The frame extensions are laughable, and I think kind of just for the tanks. So like, I wouldn't put anything heavy on there. I don't even put my mountain bikes on there anymore. I just put little light cruising around town road bikes. I wasn't happy with the engineering of that, and had planned on tying tubing off of that, building a big rack system off of the back with storage boxes, moving the spare, and strengthening the hitch off of the entire back wall of the RV were I to keep it, in order to make it a mountain bike friendly bike rack. But as is, again, if you wanted to put some light luggage out there, go for it. I left the 4-wire harness off the back in case you wanted to put a spare light off of the back of whatever you mount on it. Let me pop the hood and show you what that's all about. I'm running out of daylight, I'm running out of breath, I'm getting thirsty, I'm getting hungry, I'm sure you're getting bored. Let's see, sorry, this is difficult with one hand. Oh my gosh, there we go. The motor is in pretty great shape. Again, I've got a new battery in it. I did a coolant flush right after I got it. I got the Prestone crap that should have never been in here in the first place out. Put Toyota coolant in it, ran it for a little bit, drained it, put more Toyota coolant in it, the nice pink stuff, and then filled it on back all the way up so that it's at the correct good dilution. Prestone's not supposed to be in Japanese motors for whatever reason. The original owner had told me that he did, and I have the receipts for the timing belt. It's a non-interference motor, so not a catastrophic issue, but timing belt and the water pump had been done at 61,000 miles, I believe. I'd assume he also did the valves while he was in there. Didn't have it as a line item on the receipt. I'm guessing it wasn't done. There's a couple of schools of thought on these shim and cup valves. Some people say you're never supposed to do them. They're lifetime valves. That's obviously a hot pile of garbage, Toyota. So they got tight. One of them burned out. And now here we are. So let's see what else is worth mentioning on this thing. Again, power steering is leaking from the steering box down here. It is coming around, leaking onto the ground, as you can see, from here, from the steering box, which is right there. I've got the nice Bilstein shocks in this thing. Gosh, it made such a big difference. It's an incredible driving vehicle for what it is. The original owner put new sway bar bushings and stuff on it right before I got it, and I mean, like, as hilarious as this thing looks, you can absolutely rail corners in it. It drives like a dream. It never looks like it should have worked, but it works great. One of my favorite parts about this thing, and I'm finishing the video with this, I think, is that it's got a bullet hole in the front of it. You can see where it made contact, sorry if I can get a light on it, with the frame right there in that cross member through there. I don't know where that came from. It was there when I bought it. I think it's cute and funny. Brand new Sylvania headlight that's fogging up. It's a drag. I put that on there right when I went on my big trip. I've always done Mobil 1 synthetic high mileage in it. I've kept it changed every 5,000 miles. Nice filters. It's got a new air filter. It's got a new fuel filter in it. Let's see. I think that's it. I appreciate you spending your time watching this video with me. I really have enjoyed and loved this thing. The second I saw him, I knew I had to have one. I'm super glad that I have. Prepared to take a pretty big financial hit on the front end sale of this thing, as is, with needing a new motor, needing a lot of motor work, needing an engine swap, whatever you end up wanting to do with it. I want it to go to a home where it's going to be loved and taken care of, and you know, you need to know how to work on stuff to work on these things, or you need to have a deep wallet, because like, it's a 31-year-old RV and stuff tears up on them, but it's a labor of love, and I'm obsessed with it. So I appreciate you hanging out. Buy my RV. I'm going to keep this video up after I sell it, even though I hate my voice, because there's not many videos of these out there, and I think that they're really rad, and you know, if you're interested, maybe you can learn something from this.